what do we have in a tech and a large?
We're gonna do ceremony now. So.
Oh, sorry.
All shirt
I
buyers
gotta get to
have
the.
to sit down.
I gotta get to the. I'm a seller. I'm not a buyer.
Okay. And so
Remind me.
we're gonna do ceremony first, and then we'll fellowship and figure out the rest.
Okay, the first thing we're going to do is render honors to the colors, the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. And salute. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty for all. Two. Our chaplain, Graham Schuyler, please come to benediction. Uncover.
Gracious Lord, I just raise my hands, a sign of what this is all about. The hearts, the burdens, the faith, the memories, the hope, and the loss that all people here share in memory tonight. Lord, I give you thanks for all those that have served this country. And I continually pray for favor upon the United States of America and all those that serve this country. And Lord, I pray for the memories of those that have fallen in support of protecting this country. May the fellowship be strong, may the memories be had, and may you be present in all the memories of those that we have lost. And we thank you for this great country, and it's your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Howard? The reason we're here is to honor a Gold Star father who is responsible for this event. He's been working at this for the last several years. He lost his son during combat operations in Iraq. His name is George Lutz. George, please come forward.
Please sit down.
Please sit down.
It's not that formal. You guys want to come over here? You got to stay over there. You're
Come on over.
You're going to make me look over that.
Come on,
way.
you're part of family. Come on.
Yeah, because I have to look at everyone when I say something. So, yes. Oh yeah. Please silence your cell phones. Very important. And see, mine is not silent.
That's usually a reminder to you when I say it. So.
That's right. Right. Is the post commander here?
I do not
He's
think
in the
so.
kitchen.
He is here in the kitchen?
Yes.
Okay.
Would you like me to get him for you?
Well, I just want to acknowledge him.
Okay.
You know. But thank you all for being here. You know, we've been traveling, I'll talk a little bit about that, for quite a long time. And it's really nice to be at the end of the day and to see warm, welcoming faces, you know, people that understand what we're doing, and people that want to kind of embrace this mission and just be a part of it. And it really is historic. So, are you the commander?
Yes, sir.
Hi, George.
How you doing?
I just want to acknowledge you and thank you for your hospitality and allowing us to be in your home.
Oh,
and
anytime, buddy.
to have this, this ceremony here tonight, and I know you're preparing some new for us. But, I just wanted to personally thank you.
Well, I appreciate
And publicly
that.
thank you.
And the whole club, appreciate you fellas and ladies.
Good.
And anytime you wanna be here, just bring yourself in. We appreciate you.
Thank
Good.
you.
You'll be here
Thank you
tonight?
very much.
You'll be here later tonight?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well,
I'm helping out in the kitchen, guys.
then we'll have a chance to talk about it.
Okay, thank you very much, and hey, I'm very happy you folks are here.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you. So I'd like to thank Chris and all of his work and with the Marine Corps League. And, you know, he had a very lot of things together, and he certainly did it, you know, with, you know, amazing, you know, organizational skill. And really, really appreciate you, Chris, and all of those that helped. You know, I'm sure there was a lot of downline people that were involved in this, and he was responsible for getting our law enforcement out there, and we had some really busy roads, you know, as we traveled in the last couple of days in South Carolina. So what are we doing here? I don't want to give any kind of really long speech, but just kind of give you an idea of things, because why we do this, it really is the same message. You know, it's remembrance. It's making sure that these men and women who have sacrificed for this country and for our freedom are remembered. And not just remembered as a statistics. Oh yeah, we had a casualty, and, you know, let's remember them. But let's remember them individually. You know, that they had names and they have families, and those that love them and those that served with them. And so it's very, very important that we remember them and the families they left behind. And so this is why our organization was really started. It was founded on Memorial Day of 2008, the Honor and Remember Organization, to bring public remembrance to the nation. You know, we do a really good job of working with the veteran community and the active duty, and this is much better in our generation than it's, not my generation, because I was way back, but currently, and making sure that those men and women in our armed forces are thought about and remembered. I've seen more, you know, handshakes in airports and people buying dinners and drinks for, you know, for our men and women, you know, as they go through and travel. So I think that there's a little bit more of an appreciation. I'll bet if I asked those who were doing the favor, they're probably other veterans. They're probably other of those who are connected in the military community. I don't think most of common America it really understands what our military does, but anyway. So the organization was founded in 2008 to bring public remembrance, to speak to those in our nation who don't have that connection, who don't get it. And why? Because, you know, as a grieving dad, as Chris mentioned, I was looking for something 13 years ago, that I was looking for something that would help me in my healing process. And what I was looking for was to know that my that my boy didn't die in vain, right? That somebody cared about that. And so that became my search, you know, who cares and how do they show me that they care? You know, they didn't have to show me personally, but how do they show those who have lost a loved one that they care? And I didn't really find a lot. I mean, I found things happening within the communities, like within the veterans and the military. But there's so many more people in our nation, you know, that the percentages are so low of those that are connected to the military, and I could spout them out, but I'll just give you a number that is evangelistic. And let's say 20% of our nation gets it. That's pretty high. 20% of our nation gets it. Well, that leaves 80% of our population that doesn't. And that is the message that I wanted to speak. I wanted to make sure that all of America understood that men and women are giving their lives so that their loved ones don't have to. And that's really the key. A very small percentage of families are giving their loved ones so that everyone else doesn't have to. And that's really an important thing to remember. So how did we come up with an idea was we needed to give America some tangible way to say thank you, some visible way of showing their appreciation. You know, when my son came to me and he said, "Hey, Dad, I joined the Army." And I looked at him, and nobody in my family really, since I've been conscious. My dad was in the Navy before I was born, so was my grandfather. I really wasn't in a military family. I said to him, "Are you crazy? There's a war going on." This was in '03. And he said, "Yeah." He said, "Dad, I think I can make a difference." And I gave him a hug, and I was just proud of him. As we all are of our kids, right? But he gave his life so that others didn't have to. And I say that the very least we can do is appreciate that, is say thank you for that. Because really, what families want is for their loved ones to come home. I mean, that's the only thing they want. And if we can't give them one more minute, one more second, you know, of life with their loved one, the only other thing we can give them is appreciation. And it's to say thank you. And that was the missing piece that I couldn't find in our nation. I did not see a way that Americans had to say thank you, because they don't even know the families exist. I mean, you can say, "Oh, well, we lost someone, a service member from South Carolina last week," I think it's this week, and they may know his name for a moment, for a month, maybe, but 3 months from now, 6 months from now, they're not going to know whether he was married or not. They're not going to know whether he had kids or not. They're not going to know who his parents are, or whether his parents are divorced or together. They're not going to know anything about the family. And so my contention has always been, we need to say thank you to the families because they're still here with us. And how do you do that? That's always my question. How do you do that? And there's never been a really good answer for that. You know, well, I go to a grave on Memorial Day. Well, maybe you do, but does the family know that? You know, do you know one family? Some of you may know one family whose loved one gave their life. But do you know 2? Do you know 5? Do you know 100? I know 1,000. I probably know 2,000. But that doesn't give America a way to appreciate. So I thought the best way of sending a message of thanks and giving someone a really easy way of being thankful is to create a symbol. And if you haven't heard about the Honor and Remember flag, it's a flag that was established on the day of our organization founding, 2008, at Memorial Day, the Honor and Remember flag. It became a way for all of us, if you had a flagpole, to put something up that only said one thing: thank you for that sacrifice that you made as a family to give your loved one to us, so that we might have the freedoms that we have. And then if we could educate the nation into what exactly that flag meant and the symbolism behind it, then whenever a family saw it, it would be an instant connection to say, you know what, they get it. I understand that they're sending a message to me. And that became why that flag exists. It became a gift to all of the families from America, and a way to say, God bless you, thank you, I care. And so fast forward to where we are now. So we have the flag as kind of this overriding visual. But as an organization, we are dedicated to remembering every single individually by name, every service member. And really, the flag recognizes, it's not a war on terror flag. It recognizes every single fallen service member in the history of our country. Every war, every conflict, every training incident, any incident that caused a death while serving or as a result of serving. So all of them. But we wanted to make sure that those names weren't forgotten. And so we decided that one really incredibly important way would be to call out names out loud. Would it be to compile a list of fallen service members? And since we're in the generation of the war on terror, we thought, well, we'll take the war on terror and we'll start with the USS Cole, coming of the Cole of October 12, 2000. And we will combine every single name that we can possibly find. And that's what we did. For 2.5 years, we have been compiling names, working with different departments of the government, the Department of Defense and the Army, and many other organizations. And we gathered together every service member's name that we possibly could find. And then we put them in a searchable engine on a website. And then we blasted it out as far and wide, as many places as we could, so that everybody in America, in the world, could go to that website and look for their hero. And if they couldn't find their hero, then they could add them. Because the DOD does not account for every casualty. They just don't, not publicly. You know, we have casualties all the time. Chris, one of our runners, told me today that there was just an incident, an Air Force incident, where a service member lost his life. Now, it didn't come out in the DOD notice. Remember the plane that went down in Mississippi? 16, I think, were lost in that plane. The DOD has yet to put out a notice that those 16 went down in Mississippi. So there's a lot of holes that are out there. So we wanted to make sure, in order to fill those holes, that we let everybody know, go out, look for your hero, find out if we're missing anything. Because I really wanted to have the most comprehensive fallen veteran data of anyone in the world. Because I wanted to make sure every one of them was called out loud. We even included those that died from the hidden wounds of post-traumatic stress after service. And I don't know of any organization or entity that has put together such a massive tribute, a once-in-a-lifetime tribute. So we are still adding names to this tribute all the way to Arlington because we're still encountering death. And I know it's sad, but it's what it is. As long as we have a military and a free country, we're going to have death. We are going to have losses. And we need to remember them respectfully and as reverently as we can. You know, with a flag, with our own voices. And so we took that compilation of names, we organized them by their dates of death, because we had to put them in some kind of manageable way. And we thought, wow, let's see how many unique days these service members died. So we came out with about 6,000 plus unique dates of death. And then we said, well, we're going to run a mile for every one of them. And it didn't matter if one individual died on that day or on 9/11, that was one of our miles. There were 57 that were military related that died that day. And each day, or each mile of that day, was accounted for from October 12, 2000, as I mentioned. That was our first mile. 19 sailors lost their lives on the USS Cole. And then the next mile was October 13th. And the next mile was whatever the next date of death was. And we continued on that path, running consecutive dates of death to where we are right here. And we have run 106 days now for 4,900 unique dates of death. And we are now running for the year 2016. So we have started in 2000, and we are now in South Carolina, hitting the year 2016. And today we ran for 122 heroes over 47 miles. And what do? We have a live feed. Now, last night I know I challenged everybody who was there, because first I asked who's been watching the live feed. So I'm going to ask you again, who's been watching the live feed? Okay, good. Very good. All right, we have a live feed, right? Runforthefallen.org. We still have 2 weeks of running, so I want everybody to make sure that they're watching this live feed, because you can hear and watch us honor these men and women for the next 2 weeks. And we have, I think, over 2,000 more names that we're going to read in the next 2 weeks. We have already, to this point, named out loud 18,123 names so far today. And having been watching the live feed, then you might not know exactly what we do when we're honoring, because we're not just saying we're doing this. We have actually put together a team that is very meticulously, reverently, and respectfully conducting a ceremony every 8 to 10 minutes, every day, 6 markers an hour probably, and about 8 to 10 hours a day. This is what we're doing every single marker. So we have a contingent of runners, and those runners are carrying 4 full-size flags. They're carrying the United States flag, for obvious reasons. They're carrying the state flag of South Carolina, because we're honoring the state that we're running in. This is our 17th state. I may not have said that, so we have switched our flags 17 times already. We have 2 more states to go. They're carrying a flag that we established about 3 years ago called the Honor and Sacrifice flag. That flag remembers all of our fallen first responders. So it's a flag that honors our fallen police officers, our fallen firefighters, and our emergency. And then we're carrying the Honor and Remember flag because it represents every fallen service member that we are naming. And also, it represents everyone that has ever lost their life in America. So we're not just running for them, we're really running for them all, in homage to everyone who has kept our freedom. And then we're carrying a placard. And on that placard is the date of death that we're running for, and all of the names of those that died on that date of death. And along with that, we're carrying a set of flags, small flags. And as we come to the marker, predetermined location, everyone comes to attention. We ask if there are any Gold Star families present, because sometimes there are. Today we had 1 family, I believe, that came. Thank you, guys. And 2 families came? No, I'm not identifying Gold Star families. I'm identifying those that came to their markers today. So I'll get to the family part. But thank you for being there. We'll ask if there's any families there. Everyone will come to attention. And then we'll begin to read our marker. This hero marker is dedicated to all military service members who lost their lives on this particular day, June 8th, 2015, whatever that day was. And then we will read the names of every one of those service members who are on that placard and their branch of service. We already know when they died, so we read their name and their branch of service. And as those names are being read, a set of those flags are being planted in the ground for each name. And once those flags have all been planted, then we all come back to attention, hand salute, hand over our heart in honor of those names that we read. And we have been doing this, as I said, every day. We've taken a few days off for rest, but every day, hour by hour, 8 to 10 hours a day, for the last 106 days. We want it to be I mean, it is exhausting. I can only can't describe, can't even talk about it. I'm so tired. But it's exhausting, not only physically exhausting, but emotionally exhausting. Because every one of we don't do this lightly. And every one of those men and women we know as a family, and someone out there who loves them and thinks about them every day. And we know that even though we may not pronounce everybody's name correctly, that we are reading them with the same consistency and respect, from one ceremony to the next ceremony to the next ceremony. And so that everyone can go, even with the live feed, it's all saved. You can actually go out and find the marker and hear us do that if you missed it. In the best, most reverent way we can. And is that important? Yeah, we think it's important. We had hoped that somehow this, incredible mission would go viral. It hasn't. That the calling of these names would be so touch the nation that radio stations and TV stations across America would tune in. Who are they honoring now? Where are they? We've been doing this for months. Nothing. Crickets. I hate to think that there are other more important stories than honoring our fallen, at any moment for 5 minutes, in 5 months. And so how important is it? I'm going to hold, thank you. Yeah. So this, is an honor and remember flag that we've been carrying since Fort Irwin, California, April 7th when we started. And this flag contains the signatures of every family, one signature per family, who has thought it important enough, not that they haven't all thought it important enough, but have thought it important enough to take of their own expense the time to fly or drive tens of hours to be on the side of the road when we arrived, to hear their loved one's name called for 30 seconds. These are all the families that have come out. I don't know how many names are on here. I really don't. A couple of hundred more, I really don't. But I can tell you I met every one of these families, as my entire team did. And we hugged on them and loved them and hopefully brought the respect to their loved one for that moment. And then we moved on. Just try. We moved on. As hard as it is to leave a family and go, okay, guys, we gotta go. We've got to keep honoring. We've got to keep that mission alive. We've got thousands more ahead of us. If it's this important to these families, for 30 more seconds of remembrance, they already are remembering. But to know somebody else is remembering, there's not enough words for that of appreciation. This nation needs to wake up and realize that this is our national treasure. Every one of these names. And so tonight, as part of our closing ceremony, one of the things that we do is we reread the names of those that we ran for. Because the road is a very noisy place. And if you have watched the live feed, or if you're going to watch the live feed, you'll know that some of those names can't be heard. Microphone's too far away based on the noise ratio. And even sometimes when we're standing there hearing those names as a team, we don't hear it because it's so loud. So we do the best we can to wait till the trucks pass or whatever that may be. So we like to reread those names in a quiet place with those that are here with us for a lot of reasons, the road noise being one of them. But second, because those families aren't here with us. We may be recording it for them, but they're not here with us. And we want to make sure that we give an opportunity for those who are to stand in for them and to listen to these names as if they're their very own families. The power of hearing a name that means something to you personally. Now, I know the families that are here tonight that we read for today will be waiting to hear their loved one's name. It's human nature. But all of us should have that same emotion. And so I'm going to ask Kristen, who's coming up? My team from today to read these names that we ran for. 122 names over 48 markers. You do not have to stand unless you want to stand. Please be comfortable. And then after they're done reading, this is something I do every night as well. I'm going to give anybody who's here with us an opportunity to call out loud a name of someone that means something to them. Neighbor, friend, loved one, any generation of loss. So think about that as these names are being read.
The dates that we ran for today were January 1st through February 24th of 2016.
Sergeant Major Roger Scott Thompson, United States Army. Private First Class Tyler Lee Warzilla, United States Marine Corps. Airman Apprentice Vian Stafford Irving II, United States Navy. Specialist Wesley W. Etel, United States Army. Petty Officer 3 Michael Allen Steiner Bacchus, United States Navy. Specialist Christopher Lee Basinger, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Devin Lee Shute, Army. Staff Sergeant Michael Christopher Oderno Rashad Allen, United States Navy. Staff Sergeant Matthew K. McClintock, United States Army. Private Theron Herbert Linville III, United States Army. Petty Officer 2 Jeffrey Tyrone Missouri, United States Navy. Specialist Kevin Tyrone Jones, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Dallas R. Pauls, United States Air Force.
Captain Christopher Francis Signa, United States Navy. Specialist Sergeant First Class Randall Paul Stone Jr., U.S. Air Force. U.S. Army. Major Charles Edward Reeder, U.S. Army. Tech Sergeant Carl Michael Dahlman, U.S. Air Force. Chief Petty Officer Aaron Joseph Jardina, U.S. Navy. Specialist Jacob Gordon King, U.S. Army. Master Sergeant Pedro Fernando Consuerga, U.S. Air Force. Sergeant Michael Jimenez Medlock, U.S. Marine Corps. Chief Petty Officer Andre Terrell Howe, U.S. Navy. Senior Airman Burley Windsor, U.S. Air Force. Lieutenant Jesse Irvin Reddy Jr., U.S. Navy. Staff Sergeant Bradley David Nicholson, U.S. Air Force. Private First Class Diane Beniquez, U.S. Army. Major Sean Matthew Campbell, U.S. Marine Corps. Corporal Matthew Raymond Drown, U.S. Marine Corps. Lieutenant Corporal Lance Corporal Ty Lewis Hart, U.S. Marine Corps. Corporal Thomas Joseph Jardus, U.S. Marine Corps.
Petty Officer Third Class Tristan Robert Moon, U.S. Navy. Private First Class Amir Podzik, U.S. Army. Sergeant First Class Amy Michelle Yako, U.S. Army. Tech Sergeant Ross Morgan Walleen, U.S. Air Force. Seaman Apprentice Ashley Marie Gutierrez, U.S. Navy. First Sergeant Raymond J. Burnside, U.S. Army. Chief Petty Officer Juan Florenzo Hernandez Cueva, U.S. Navy. Chief Petty Officer Nicholas Harrison Stalter, U.S. Navy. Sergeant Joseph F. Stifler, U.S. Army. Tech Sergeant Jeremy Michael Cross, U.S. Air Force. Petty Officer Second Class Kent Edward Brum, U.S. Navy. Specialist Eric Joseph Lowe, U.S. Army. Airman Recruit
Airman Recruit Stella Roybal, Magno Fonda, United States Navy.
Petty Officer Second Class Michael Vernon White Jr., U.S. Navy. His name. Airman First Class Christina Danielle Silvers, U.S. Air Force. Sergeant Nathan Michael Higginbottom, U.S. Army. Sergeant Jason Gania Lexamana, U.S. Army. Private First Class Jacob Ray Buckmaster Jr., U.S. Army.
Sergeant Richard Lothario Rogers, U.S. Army. Sergeant Aaron Joy Berry, U.S. Army. Sergeant Rose Angela Crespo, U.S. Army. Corporal Louis Valencia Mangahis Wilden, U.S. Marine Corps. Sergeant Paul James Oldman, U.S. Marine Corps. Sergeant First Class Terrence Jeffrey O'Hearn, U.S. Army. Staff Sergeant David Thomas Bowie, U.S. Army. Staff Sergeant Jonathan David Carico, U.S. Air Force. Petty Officer First Class Maceo Lee Sturdivant, U.S. Navy. Sergeant First Class Carlos Michael Botham, U.S. Army. Petty Officer First Class Dwayne Smalls, U.S. Navy. Senior Airman Keffer Christian Human, U.S. Air Force. Master Sergeant Nathan Charles Riddle, U.S. Air Force. Corporal Scott Robert Studebaker, U.S. Marine Corps. Senior Airman Michael Anthony Beaton, U.S. Air Force. Colonel James Powell, U.S. Air Force.
Captain Brian Thomas Kennedy, Corps. Captain Kevin Thomas Roche, United States Marine Corps. Sergeant Adam Clayton Scholler, United States Marine Corps. Sergeant Dylan Joseph Semolina, United States Marine Corps. Captain Stephen Robert Torbert, United States Marine Corps. Sergeant William Joshua Turner, United States Marine Corps. Sergeant Jeffrey Allen Simpler, United States Marine Corps. Sergeant Jeffrey Allen Simpler, United States Marine Corps. Specialist Blaine David Law, United States Army National Guard. Specialist Irvin Alfonso Rivera, United States Army. Master Sergeant Brian Joseph Badsteinberg, United States Air Force. Hospitalman Mark Aaron Pratt, United States Navy. Major Troy Don Wayman, United States Army. Specialist Adam Jared Klager, United States Army. Command Sergeant Major Lynn Edward Ratley, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Jonathan Maningwal Turner, United States Air Force. Major Don D. Gary, United States Air Force. Airman Christian Alexander Nash, United States Navy. Sergeant Jacob C. Vela, United States Army. Sergeant Anthony Madrid Ramirez, United States Army. Sergeant First Class Brian Wayne Thompson, United States Army. Sergeant Corey Antonio Lamb, United States Army. Specialist Matthew Dale Junkowski, United States Army. Sergeant Bradley Scott Miles, United States Army. Sergeant Michael Brandon Reed, United States Army. Private First Class Daquan Jamar Robinson, United States Army. Master Sergeant Richard Michael Klims, United States Air Force. Chief Petty Officer Christopher Scott Precht,